Welcome to what is episode 4 of 100 Years of Marine Corps Tankers. This is a YouTube channel that I have created to help tell the story of Marine Corps tankers from a legacy and from a historical perspective. And the guests that are coming on here are getting better by the minute. And I'm happy to welcome a good friend of mine, somebody that we worked together, and now Mr. Sibby, but at the time he was Lieutenant Sibby and Captain Sibby, which I'll cover here in a second. So thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So you received your commission through PLC, attending OCS in summers of 2008 and 9, and then you graduated TBS Alpha Company 1 TAC 2011, at which time you came here to Fort Benning. You attended the basic airborne course, obviously got your wings, and then moved on to the Armor Basic Officer course where we made you a tank lieutenant, and then on to the Armor Reconnaissance course. Then you checked into Delta Company, which is where our paths crossed at First Tanks, and then you assumed 4th Platoon Commander in December of 2011, which was a ginormous company at the time. It was a good time.
That was something else.
Then you qualified your crew during semi-annual gunnery, and you supported 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines during Enhanced Mojave Viper, 4 TAC 12. And for the audience that may not know, Enhanced Mojave Viper is a exercise that is conducted from a combined arms perspective, and tanks are a very integral portion of that from the direct fire weapon system, and we'll get into that in a second. Moving on with your career, your career turned slightly when you began working as a company advisor for the 6-1 of the 215th Kandak, which is a Afghanistan unit from November 2012 to 13. Then you returned back to Alpha Company, 1st Tank Battalion, where you served as the 1st Platoon Commander. And then with Alpha Company, you deployed to Darwin, Australia in August of 2013. And it's important to know that the Australians are actually using the M1A1s. And this is as a support that gentlemen like yourself and others provided in getting the tanks over there. Then you came back and supported 1-8, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines during an integrated training exercise where it changed to ITX. The exercise changed slightly, a little bit more.
You were my coyote.
I was. That means a controller. So I got to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, and the otherwise. And then you replaced me in the role of Sidewinder during Steel Night 2013, where you were a controller. And then at that time, you came back as a platoon commander, and you served as the interim company commander for Company Bravo, and also as the maintenance and management officer, which is a huge deal during their phasmo inspection, which is a readiness exercise where we get into the weeds of the maintenance, and you can certainly touch on that if you want. At that time, Captain Sibby returned back to First Tanks in November 2014 for his B billet, and then you went off to the Marine Corps Embassy Security Group Region 5, which is the Western Europe, Scandinavia, Eastern Mediterranean, and then you finished your tour as a logistics officer, operations officer, and then finally executive officer. So with that, we'll focus on tanks for a moment. What is the first thing you think of when you hear of Marine Corps tankers?
Yeah, I just all that little bio right there. Just it was a short time period in my life, but just like a lot of good memories right there. And when you mention tankers, the first thing that I think of is just it's a tribal group. Okay, I mean it's a small community, and I used to tell people this all the time whenever I was outside of the community. What I always thought was really good was in the community, we sort of ate our own. And what I meant by that was, and I would tell Marines this, and I would tell junior officers this. I said, if you go somewhere and you meet another tank community member, you suck, your reputation sort of precedes you. And everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows that you're a dirtbag if you're a dirtbag. Everybody knows if you're hot, then you're the heat, and everybody wants you. So that's what I think of. And then I think of that time at Delta Company, from the time, you picked me up, JR. I mean, it was great. I want to say one story real quick. I remember I had a flip phone at the time, and look you're still a pretty technological savvy guy, so kind of great to this. I had a flip phone because I was always breaking them and losing them, and I was total libo risk. And you looked at that and you go, that's just not going to do. I need to be able to communicate with you if you're going to get emails and this and that. At the time, that was allowed.
Right.
So that was pretty funny. But, I mean, that time in Delta Company, it was such a whirlwind because, like you said, I think we had 36 crews or something at that gunnery, which is just unheard of.
It was insane.
Echo and Delta had merged. I had just shown up. I think we went to the field 2 weeks later, so you can imagine. I mean, lieutenants, everybody wants to make their jokes. I mean, I fit right into that stereotype at the time, just being so brand new and then just being really overwhelmed. Being 4th platoon commander, and I had a brand new gunner at the time. I think we had to, basically do our GST and all that pre-qual in less than 2 weeks before we head out to the field. And it was really exciting. It was a really good time. And that's where a lot of really tight bonds were formed, and that community, just the fabric of the community and where people can really make an impact on your life. Because I'll tell you, like some of the staff NCOs that we had out there, I'm still, pretty tight with today. I mean, I talk with Staff Sergeant Thomas O'Day regularly. I talk with Gunny Britt Higgins. Sergeant Mike Medina actually works with me now here in Fort Worth.
Nice.
So, we got a good group of those people. I had a great relationship with my platoon sergeant, Gunny Lee, who became my platoon sergeant again in Alpha Company. And it was just a lot of fun. And I think that as we grew, me being inexperienced at the time after gunnery, you just don't know what you don't know. And people always tell you, like, you got to educate the infantry and you got to be able to work, got to put your best foot forward to really represent the community. And that's what I tried to do. And I'll just say this in terms of, these are what I think of when tankers. I went out to ENV, and I don't know if you remember this at the time. You might have been transitioning at XO as a XO during that time when we had just left gunnery. I think I was going to the field maybe a month later for EMB, and Gunny Lee couldn't go out to the field. So my platoon chops, we go to the 3-8. I'm independent platoon commander, and I went out there with a staff sergeant as my platoon sergeant that I hadn't worked with at the time. And then I had a couple of sergeant TCs that were, they were good to go. Good folks and everything, but they were also inexperienced in the terms of, sometimes when you got lap movers and it was just that mix. I mean, hey, we were supporting, we got to do what we got to do to support. So we put our best foot forward, but it was a challenge, and I had some good NCOs in that group, but then that staff sergeant couldn't really complete the field op because he had some personal stuff going on. So now I'm through 2 platoon sergeants. I had a third one come out as like an interim, and then finally, O'Day steps in. Top Willenbecker at the time was like, hey, because I was like, hey, Master Sergeant, I got this. Like, I'm good to go. Like, I'll take care of all this. He's like, hey, sir, I appreciate it, but you're going to need a rocker out there. And I'll be like, raw top. And then, so O'Day comes out, and it was kind of a mess. I'm just going to go ahead and say it right then and there. Like, I'll just, let's call a spade a spade. The platoon wasn't in great shape. I mean, he did his first inspection on the he was not pleased. I hope that you can get him on here so he can kind of reiterate some of these in the finer details. But he pulled me aside and he goes, hey, sir. And if you remember O'Day, he'd always talk like tactical terms. And he'd be like, let me tell you something. You and I, we need to go to the Warriors Club and we need to hash this stuff out. And I'd be like, okay. He goes, we're going to grab some Charlie Bravos. I'm like, hey, Staff Sergeant, I don't think we can do that. He goes, hey, sir, let me tell you what. We're tanks. This is our house. So I'm like, oh my God. So
let me provide some translation here. So GST is gunnery skills test. So what Blaine has given us here is he's given us a rundown of the leadership challenges and the things that tankers have to work through and why this community is so important. It's no secret that with the divestment of tanks, this is the purpose for this channel. The purpose of this channel is getting these stories out so that, people, 2-3 years down the road from now or longer can come back at these and see, because quite frankly, more likely you're never going to be in front of a battalion of Marines, for a birthday ball. And guys like you would probably be the guys would ask back for speeches. And, this is an opportunity for you to kind of give these stories. So for the civilians out there, let me provide a little bit of clarification. NCOs are non-commissioned officers. All right. So Blaine was working as a platoon commander. He was working as a lieutenant. And a young lieutenant always thinks that they are going to run the show. They're going to get in there. They're going to make the changes. They're going to run the show. They're going to do everything. In reality, and if you listen to the last interview with Gunnery Sergeant Jules, the Marines belong to the staff NCOs. And when the rubber meets the road and the work has to be done and things are being done, it's really those staff non-commissioned officers that are kind of like the middle management folks that know the platoon better than Dan does a lieutenant. So what Blaine is giving you here is that he's giving you a rundown from a leadership perspective of having to learn, left, rights, and center, and kind of figuring that out. And as a hard charger lieutenant that you were, and you are a hard charger, you wanted to get in there, you kind of wanted to call the shots, and you had this O'Day person that came out of left field and was like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's kind of figure out where we're going to go with this.
It was, but I need to provide a little bit of amplifying information on that. Me and O'Day got along great. I'll say, like, if you remember me and the guys, and maybe I'll get some things in the comments where totally disagree with me about my own perspective about who I was and who I am, but I thought I was pretty relatable, and then I always listen to my NCOs, and sometimes, I have a quote that I tell Medina now. I go, famous last words of a Marine NCO. Hey, sir, I got this. Yeah. I was like, hey, how many times did I listen to that and it come back to, I had to cover, you know what I mean? And
or the other one is, hey, sir, watch this.
Hey, sir, watch this, my gun. So he pulls me aside. It really was not pretty. I'm telling you, it'd been a couple weeks in the field. I was doing the platoon sergeant / platoon commander thing. I'm just gonna say it how it was. It was a tough time. Mm-hmm. And O'Day was just like, and O'Day, to shed light a little bit on like what you're saying in other contexts, is something he said. He goes, hey, sir, this is how it needs to go. You train the platoon and I train the Marines. And he goes, and in that, we'll work together in harmony. Good to go. And I'd be like, all right, and so we go to the Warriors Club, and I've been in the field for 2.5 weeks. I'm dehydrated. I'm disgusting. And like I had a couple beers there at the Warriors Club with them, and probably like I was like, geez, this hit me. I'm all sunburned and everything like that. But we go back, we talk to the platoon, we hash a lot of stuff out, and he goes, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a daily battle rhythm. Really helped organize some things. And he really gave that good staff NCO backbone that I needed. I needed it desperately out there. And so he really put the onus on on the NCOs, the gunners, to really help uplift some of the performance of some of the others. And I think that paid dividends. And so I remember there was this first lieutenant at the time who was an Amtracker out there, and he was always giving me hell. And O'Day was at one of these meetings with me, and he pulled me aside afterwards. He's like, hey, sir, you cannot let that inferior officer talk to you that way. And I was like, yeah, you're right. He goes, I don't give the first lieutenant or not. He goes, 1 bar rule, right? I was like, yeah. Like he's pumping me up now. Like I'm getting my confidence back.
And yes doesn't belong to him, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm starting to feel it, And I remember we were going to it was just like an admin movement. And we were like third in the order or something. And O'Day's like, 1, 4. I go, yeah, what's up? He goes, hey, can I just ask you a question? Why the hell are we behind the trackers? And I was just like, well, that was a battalion order. He goes, nah, sir, tanks don't ride behind anybody. And I was just like, all right. Like, and I was like, hey, let's move it. We pulled out of the column before anybody took off. And it was just like, all right, execute movement. Tanks were already rolling. They were like, hey, Tiger, what's going on? I was like, yeah, we got to go get, we got to hit the ASP. Like we'll be lead trace, we'll call out all the markers and phase lines and stuff. They're like, okay. So the track platoon commander is pissed at me already. We get to the ASP and they didn't have ammo for us or something.
Ammo supply point is ASP.
Yeah, I'll try. You're right. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to try to clarify. So we get to the ammo supply point and the battalion didn't have their ammo chief there. And O'Day's like, talking to this poor Lance Corporal. He goes, hey, Marine, that's garbage. You're going to tell me this battalion has one chief out here that can distribute ammo? No way. He goes, hey, boys, go get your shit.
Right.
And they're like, load up. We got to roll. We got to do maintenance. Like, that's totally unsat. And then I was
garbage. It's garbage.
I was just like, yeah, total fucking garbage. And I'm standing there. I'm like, yeah. O'Day turns around and looks at the kid. He goes, and if you got a problem with it, anybody else does, my name is Staff Sergeant O'Day, and I'm with tanks. And I was just like, yeah. He goes, hey, sir, you might need to have my back later. I was like, all right. I was like, yeah, no big deal. Totally got it. Well, that night we get to like our fob, and we're forward operating base.
Right.
And, you know, we're in our coil outside of it. And, you know, because we don't ever want to pull in there. We want to do our own thing, again, our own little tribe. And I remember we went to a meeting that night, and the battalion XO was just like, hey, Tiger. He was this old prior enlisted major, just skin like leather. He was just like, he was a total man though. He was a beast. And he was just like, hey, Tiger, come here, my warrior. And he like grabs his arm around me. He goes, let me holler at you for a minute. And he's like, Staff Sergeant, I need to talk to Lieutenant. O'Day was already like 10 steps away. He's like, hey, have a good night, sir. And I was like, oh. He goes, did you steamroll one of my Lance Corporals today? And he's like, because I'm going to give you one chance to give your side of the story. And I just turned and I put myself at parade rest. And I just said, yes, sir, I did. And he was just like, well, why? And I told him what sort of happened. He goes, all right, good to go. Next time, just like, let me know. Give us an opportunity before you steamroll one of my boys. But I was just like, yes, sir, no problem. Good to go. And, you know, I
building reputations.
Yeah, you know, like, but
building
you know,
reputations.
But O'Day was like, hey, sir, that's good to go. Got to get your street cred up, you know? And so that EMV continues like that. And we have more run-ins with this, with that track lieutenant. I remember O'Day was like, hey, sir, next time this kid says something to you, like, he doesn't say this kid, he goes, next time this inferior officer, you know, talks to you like that, this is what you need to say. And I'm like, and he says it, and I was like, whoa, Staff Sergeant, like, I can't say that. Like, it's ridiculous. He goes, nah, you got to let them know whose house this is, sir. And I'm like, okay, good to go. So we're out in the back, and we're doing this.
Battalion Assault Force.
Yeah, thank you. And so we were doing the recon before we actually did the breach for the engineers. And we were going to be providing road guard support basically for the infantry before they entered the breach point. And my recommendation to the company commander at the time was, hey, sir, you know, if the intel is that there's going to be improvised explosive devices on this road and you're going to be leading with tanks, I was like, we run the risk of immobilizing a tank and losing, you know, one of the greatest direct fire asset that you have out at your disposal, because you want to provide. I was like, we got engineers, we have other assets to be able to kind of clear this. It might take a little bit longer, but we can cover you by fire. And so the track lieutenant, who's only there for giving a ride, by the way, no tactical presence or insight, and he says, yeah, you know what? Why don't you just drive down the road and get blown up so a tank gets hit like everybody here would prefer? And that's what he says. And I was like, and I just turned over, and at the time I was a big dipper, you know, Lieutenant Belt Buckle. And I was like, I turned around, I just looked at him, I was like, I'm gonna need you to stand at parade rest when you address an armor officer. And so that's what O'Day wanted me to say to him, but it just hit me. I heard it in the back of my mind. He's like, you got to do it, sir.
Yep.
Get him. And then I look over, and the company commander's like dying laughing. I was like, street cred. You know, that's all I thought. So, you know, it was all kind of good and fun. And then we ended up executing that exercise. And the last piece of that I'm going to say, and this is a Higgins story, which you'll love. So we're in support by fire position up on the hill where we're covering the element that's maneuvering through the breach by fire and being able to provide security for them. And so Alpha section, my section, the 1 and 2 tank up here, while Bravo section goes and execute the breach movement first and proof the field and all that stuff. Man, all this stuff is coming back to me like nothing. It's been years. And so they go and do that. And when I go ahead and execute movement down from our support by fire position, what we had was this lane that was marked. And I'm telling you, you could have fit a Greyhound bus horizontally twice over, I swear, in this lane. Maybe it wasn't that big, but I digress. And so we move our way down, and I just grab my gun. We're behind the breach, so you know, security at this point, you didn't need to stop. Didn't need to keep scanning. I max elevate for my gunner. I'm leading the way for Alpha section to go through, and all of a sudden I hear I'm about to hit the breach, and I hear Tiger. This is, you know, I can't remember what their call sign was. Grunt, and go for Tiger, and they say a tank has hit in AAV, and I'm like, I like pop my head out of the hatch. I'm like looking around. Like, I'm good. I'm asking my gunner. I'm like, and it's Garen. I think staff sergeant right now. It's staff sergeant Garen. I was like, did we hit anything? He goes, I don't think so. And so I call the two, and then the two's like, no, it wasn't us, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, we make it through. We finish the exercise at the end. O'Day and me, get off the tank, get our back brief from, it was Captain Castillo at the time and Gunny Higgins were there evaluating us from our side.
Mm-hmm.
And Higgins is losing it, just like kicking dirt. Like he looked like a upset,
baseball coach come out to umpire.
Exactly. Just like, oh my God, like walking
spits flying, covers going off.
Oh, it was nuts. And I'm just like, what the hell? And so I hear him, and then he like calms down, collects himself. We like kind of go over my points. Captain Castillo briefed me all on my stuff, and I was like, good to go, sir, good to go. And then, kind of lets me have it. Higgins just goes, hey, Staff Sergeant O'Day. And he's like, yes, Gunny. He goes, outstanding load plan, Marine. And he's like, thank you, Gunny. He goes, you know how I know that? And he goes, no. He goes, because the gear is still strapped to the bustle rack that's in the back of my Humvee. And I'm like, and it just hit me. I was like, oh my God. He knocked the bustle rack off the tank, and get this, it was the C7, so he knocks the SATCOM off the C7. I was like,
SATCOM is satellite communication, worth like a ton of money, and it's the communication software and system that is used to control the remainder of the exercise. So you just took an entire battalion pretty much out of the fight, except for the Bravo section. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, the strategic corporal is real, and
shows them the mess with tanks. Hey, keep your distance too.
It was rough. And I mean, I'll tell you what else. I mean, there was some other stuff. Like I remember there was and this is a great O'Day story, but we were doing our section inspections, and I was doing Bravo section, and one of the Marines, before we were doing our weapon safety. So this is this is the stuff I'm doing. This is a preamble to like my time at Alpha Company, because you saw me out at that ITX, and you saw a ton of them. So I'm not asking you to remember them all, but you can like, this is a mess, you're hearing this stuff. You were in those, you saw that stuff. And I'm telling you, like, I was hurting. My pride was hurt, and ego were hurting for sure. But I remember we were doing our weapon safety conditions, and it was the company gunnery sergeant from the infantry came out to give it to us. Hey guys, Marines, can we gather around? No big deal. I know you guys know this stuff, but we got to cover it. Hey, can somebody give me the safety, your safety conditions for, the 50 cal? And, somebody gives it, and then somebody's like, hey, how about 240? And O'Day was like, Sergeant blank. He goes, why don't you give Gunny the weapon safety conditions? And the Marine, TC at the time, stands there and goes, I cannot recall at this time. I mean, you got to imagine, like, everybody who's in this community understands what's going through my mind, what's going through everybody's mind. Like, that ain't it. Mm-hmm. And so after
ask the driver will get
it. Hey, we're hot seating. So I was like, hey, before we do this inspection, I want, all the TCs. I was like, but him specifically, I was like, he's writing every weapon safety condition, every weapons system that's on the tank, to include, small arms. He's putting it, and he's pasting it on his turret wall, And so we go to do our inspection, and and this was the three that it happened to. And I hop in there, and what's on his turret wall? A picture of Erwin Rommel and his wife. And I was like, dude, what's up? Like, where, what? He's like, oh, I just thought that, Marines always test you,
Right.
Like, oh, I just thought I just had to write it in the notebook. Negative. I said very clearly, pasted right here.
However, Rommel is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, little bit of points, but didn't follow instructions to the letter of the law. Roger, got it.
Negative. O'Day's like, I just go, and I was like, all right, this is kind of like platoon sergeant deal. Like, I'm not just gonna go horse over this stuff. So I went and I was like, hey, Staff Sergeant, here's what's up. This is what the deal is. And O'Day pulls him out. And I have like no bearing. I've never had really great bearing. But if you catch me off guard, it makes it that much worse. And O'Day just goes, hey, dick bag. And already I'm like, he's like, what was unclear about the lieutenant's order? And he's like, negative. He goes, I want you to go in there right now, put those weapons conditions up, take down that picture of that dead fucking Kraut and that troll of a wife, and do what the lieutenant told you to do. I was just like, and I like had to walk away. And O'Day comes up, he's like, hey, sir, can't be doing that shit in front of the Marines. I was like, dude, what do you can't be saying that stuff to me. Like, what do you want me to do? But, so it was good times. It was tough. And we had a real good time. Me and O'Day had to siphon some gas from Cat Platoon, Platoon Sergeant, Platoon Commander, building that bond.
Yep.
And it was all good. So that's my Delta Company stuff.
That's awesome, man. Hey, let's take it back a little bit. Go back in time prior to you being a Marine. What made you want to be a Marine? How did you become a Marine? Like, what's your story? What's Blaine's story?
Yeah, I was actually. So I grew up in Massachusetts, but I was almost born on Camp Pendleton, right? And I lived in San Clemente for a long time. So I was kind of around the Marine Corps indirectly for quite a while. I'd go to San Onofre Beach, and there'd always be Marines there. It was like, I was just kind of there. And they had like the Devil Pups, and it was like the Young Marine program. I never joined, but it was always something that had always kind of interested me. And then originally, so my mom got remarried, and my stepdad's a Marine officer, retired lieutenant colonel, and actually used to work with Colonel Poland. So they knew each other, but didn't do me any good. But didn't give me that Mew I wanted. But
that makes two of us.
Yeah, right. We all got our sob stories. So yeah, I just kind of always wanted to, and it worked out in the cards. I originally I had wanted to be a pilot. Truth be told, don't hate on me for that, but
not at all.
It's funny. Out of my OSO, there's another like tank connect. I swear it was kind of destined for me, right? Hey, OCS, Colonel Mancini was battalion commander. Okay, Colonel Mancini was CO First Tanks there for a while. I actually ate dinner over his house, and little did I know I had fire watch that night, and I had to leave early in the middle of dinner. Battalion CO, kind of embarrassing. And then at my OSO, I had to get a waiver for my I have a tattoo on my ribs. Nothing inappropriate or anything. And just at the time when I was commissioning, it was just so, because it was like that 2008 time where the economy wasn't really, it was super competitive to get in for officers. And Colonel Rush was the region CO at the time, and he denied my package at first. So there's another tank connection, right? Yeah, I ended up getting granted in, and I made it through, luckily. But and then when I finally commissioned, a captain Bobby Shea. I don't know if you knew Bob Shea, but he was an Alpha Company Marine. He was Staff Sergeant Shea, and he was my first salute. So the entire way around, like, I just had like these little tank connections, which was kind of really cool for me. I always thought it was cool. And then I went to TBS, and I didn't want to be anything else but a tanker. I lost that dream of flying real quick. And yeah, that was my whole deal.
Well, everyone knows.
I really want to be a Marine tanker. Also.
Everyone knows that tankers are the pilots of the ground. So I mean, we walk that walk and talk that talk. So yeah, Roger.
Yeah.
So we covered O'Day extensively, and we covered what makes a tank staff non-commissioned officer special. Let's take a moment to talk about the tankers. Obviously, you had the spectrum. You had the good, the bad, the ugly. What do you think makes Marine tankers so special?
I think just the willingness to get the job done. And if I could, I'll take it to another kind of ITX story, but this is now an Alpha Company. And this is actually sort of like, it's a whole platoon story, really. And that includes the mechs, the comm guys, everything. I mean, but like, I'll take a minute for the mech guys, but yeah, my platoon was just real strong. I had some really strong TCs in that Alpha Company platoon. I had he's Gunny, uh, uh, Gunny Hallis now, and I had Sergeant Frank Gonzalez, who's out, and then Gunny Lee was my platoon sergeant again. And the tankers under those TCs really performed well, and I think it was just because the willingness to get the job done, no matter how hard it was at any point in time. And I mean, we pushed each other. You know, I really relied on those NCOs. I really took their feedback to heart. I mean, a lot of tough decisions were made sometimes, you know, with those guys' input for sure. And I think, you know, I'd be staying up till 02 before we kicked off and exercise and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And they'd be waiting for that op order. And then, you know, next morning they'd have all their ops terms and graphics on their overlays and everything. And then you got the Met guys. I remember before we kicked off this one event and over there in the blacktop, and we were going to be down. We were already down one tank. I can't remember exactly what was going on, but we weren't going to be able to fire main gun. So we were already slant 3. And then this next gun was, they were just leaking FRH everywhere. And the battalion, although we had a really good logistic plan for them and had made requests timely and everything, just didn't have enough to support us. And so when we found out it was late home maintenance and I'm doing my op order, and I remember, you know, Met getting on and he had heard the radio traffic, blah, blah, blah. He goes, hey, you know, we'll just go back to battalion and grab this stuff. You know what I mean? It was super late. We'd been operating all day, pulling maintenance all day. It was, you know, it's 29 Palms, so the weather was obviously miserable. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and that's the stuff that is just like, we got to get this stuff done. The willingness to just step up. Everybody's in unison, working together. And I think just dirty, nasty, you know, I mean, you had the grunts over there. Love them to death. I'm not talking bad about them, but we were out there for the Marine Corps birthday. I had, dude, 2 steaks in hand. Not us, you know what I mean? The boys are in the back, all greasy, nasty, dirty, tired, you know, and just getting it and making sure that we were operable. And that's what I think really can encapsulate them. So
that's awesome. I'm going to take a moment to put a public service announcement out to the mechanics. So although this has been tanker focused, I would certainly like to get mechanics on here. We love you guys, and you guys are as much of this integral team. And just like Blaine said, I mean, the mechanics that we had, you know, when we were down, you guys were always up. And I've seen mechanics work damn near 24 hours in the heat, in the cold, because it's hot during the day and it's cold at night. And those guys are out there just doing it, just getting it done. And you know, they were really the hidden heroes behind a lot of these operations and things. And you know, you go to sleep and you're half a platoon. You wake up and you got all 4 tanks sitting there, you know, ready to rock and roll, and ready to go. So shout out to those guys. Please come on this channel. We'd love to have you. All right, so moving forward a little bit, your experience as a tank officer, how do you think it shaped your ability to advise a foreign nation's military? Because that's a pretty distinct and unusual transition, I guess.
Yeah, it was. Sob story there. I actually didn't want to go on that deployment. I was really holding off for that Delta Company deployment. And Captain Steve was like, and you know, Willenbecker was signed up, O'Day's signed up, my platoon sergeant signed up, all the lieutenants I'm friends with are signed up, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna do it. And Captain Steve was like, Delta Company deploying. And I was like, this is it was like the Joint Unit Strike Force or something. It was something super sexy that they were going to do. Lo and behold, we become like infantry advisors, no vehicles, you know, our MOS doesn't apply. So I think really it did apply. It ended up being, and then we got remissioned again when we got over there. Ended up breaking off from my original team. Captain Castillo kept a couple guys with him, Lieutenant Cronin at the time. He went and actually fulfilled basically a major's billet by himself at his own fob, which was cool. And then I actually went and served under the higher headquarters as really kind of like a personal security detachment. What we did was we not only provided that physical security for on base and any movement, because we were able to kind of circulate the battle space any more of my peers at the time. And then we also were able to advise the Afghans personal security detachment, which was cool. Really, at the end of the day, I think that was really about relationship building, and just being able to communicate, even though that there may be a language barrier and whatnot, and just being able to work alongside folks. They said Shoshana Vashana, so shoulder to shoulder at all times. And I mean, it was a successful deployment. Everybody came back whole, no real issues, and that was easy. But I'll tell you, I think being a tank officer really paid dividends, especially after that second time in Alpha Company being a platoon commander. I moved to the MSG program, which I had no idea about.
Marine Security Guard.
Yeah. I had no idea what this was. I wanted to go and be either an instructor. I wanted to be a staff platoon commander at TBS at the time, or even maybe be a tank school instructor. But I got slated for that. Went over to Germany, and when I got over there, it was post Benghazi. So what they were doing was, at the time, all of our detachments, which were, it's commanded by either a staff non-commissioned officer, either gunnery sergeant or staff sergeant, and then you have a detachment of anywhere from, depending on the size of the post, 5 to 22 Marines. Okay, and they were responsible for the physical security of our embassies and consulates overseas, which pretty legitimate and big responsibility, while working hand in hand with the State Department. But I got over there and I didn't really understand what we were focusing on, because we would go, in my capacity, we were called inspecting officers, and we would go over there and we would travel to these detachments. I'm wearing plain clothes all the time, and we would perform these administrative inspections, because we were administrative command. So we were ADCON, we were not OPCON, operational control. So we kind of had to we had to toe the line a little bit before we were getting into tactics. But at the time when I got over there, it was weird. I was in Germany, there were 4 regions, and I was the only non-prior enlisted officer, and I was the only combat arms officer. So I was just kind of like this, I was this total unicorn. And I think that what helped me, and at first it really ruffled some feathers, because we were like, they had this program called, this is microcosm, but they had this program called Navy NNPS. All it is like a Navy DVD system, where the Marines get free DVDs and all these movies and stuff before they hit it, and they get them free. It's a cool system. It's a good program. But you'd have to they'd have 300 of these things. And I had guys 1, 2, making sure they were in every round. I'm like, what are we doing here? I get it. It's government funds. I'm not saying that it's, an attention to detail, all that good Marine stuff. Absolutely. But I'm like, guys, we could be training with these guys. We could be PTing with them. We could be getting physical with them. We could be teaching them some other things other than like ocean inspector. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I really advocated for that change. And I think it wasn't because of me that they started bringing in more combat arms guys, but more combat arms guys started to come in, and we had more of a like-minded approach of just, we need to get a little bit more operational with these guys. We need to push them, because you guys, I mean, you had cooks, bakers, and candlestick makers, and some of these jokers never even touched a 9mm till they got to MSG school. So, that's where I think it really paid dividends, just having that operational mindset, and just, and also, hey, we've done plenty of inspections. I mean, you walk around that tank, and you need to know it in detail. I mean, you'll never know it like the tankers, but you know what doesn't look right. So I think that paid dividends, honestly.
No, it's great. I mean, that's a great point, and especially right now with a lot of the choices these Marine tankers have to make, whether it be transition, inter-service transfer, or simply to get out. And if they are going to get out, go work in that civilian sector. And that's a perfect example of the soft skills that tankers have, and by the boatloads, because of their ability to be mission focused, priority focused on getting things accomplished, and the attention to detail, through the inspections and all the different things that at the time we're doing them because that's what we're supposed to be doing. but in reality, we're learning an entire set of soft skills that are transferable really to any environment. And that's a great example of that. Moving on with that, this, everyone asked me, do you have an agenda for this channel, or, why are you doing this? And, and obviously the legacies and tanker lore, as I like to say, is, the stories and whatnot. But there's also a second piece to that. And it's a message to all the junior Marines that are making these tough decisions, and also to the corporations that might be looking at a resume that says potentially Marine Corps tanker on it, so that they understand what this product is, what the Marine Corps is putting out to the world when these tankers are either retiring or EASing, end of active service, going out to civilian force. So what advice do you have for the Marine tankers that are making these decisions today?
I would say, first and foremost, apart from the tanker part, is, Marine first. Okay. I would say that sometimes I always had this joke that when tankers made comfort-based decisions and or tanker-based decisions, I'd be like, that's tanker first move, man. Like, you got to be a good Marine. Okay. Like that is the first and foremost thing. And I think that sometimes that we got away with that, and I got away from it sometimes too. Like, and I remember that. And you got to pull yourself back in and remember the fundamentals that you learned from the very beginning. I mean, just be a good Marine, honor, courage, commitment, have integrity, work hard, do the right things. I mean, do the right thing when nobody's looking. And if you can develop trust with somebody and they know that you're going to push forward for mission accomplishment, which, like I said before, Marines pulling together, these Marine tankers who pulled together in the harshest environments, that is what I think of when I think of tankers. And if you can do that and work on a team and be a good teammate and be a good leader and set the example, I mean, everything else will take care of itself. You can attest to this, but I mean, and you knew it from your time as being an enlisted Marine to being an officer at TBS. And it was always instilled in the officers, take care of your Marines and they will take care of everything else. And to me, I think that translates perfectly into the civilian world. Just take care of your folks, take care of your business, and do the right thing, and everything else will work out. I mean, that's just it. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows if you're going on a job interview, you know how to look presentable. Like you shave, you shower, you know what I mean? Good hygiene. It's like basic stuff that we learned as Marines that it's what sets you apart. And I still hear it today of like, oh, you're a Marine. Oh yeah, definitely. I can see that. Like that's cool. I know a lot of different guys, Marines, just carry themselves differently. I always kind of thought that stuff was a crock when I was in, and I've heard it several times since I've been out. I've been out for 2.5 years or so, or closing in 2.5 years. And it's true. People believe in it. And so if you honestly, it's almost like the weight of the world is on your shoulders when you get out. If you're as good of a Marine as you were in the Marine Corps or better, you will be 100 times more successful on the outside. I truly believe, because your standard is just going to be head and shoulders above the civilian sector. I'm telling you right now. I had a hard time with it during my transition because my expectations are super high. But at the same time, it pays off because you deliver a really solid product to whoever it is that you're working with or working for.
I'm asking another question along the same lines. Obviously, in your current position as director of business for roofing service, you've made it for yourself at this point. I've been very successful in these 2 years, post civilian, post Marine Corps, and you obviously are managing folks. What message do you have for potentially HR directors or corporations that are looking at these folks, these Marines as they're transitioning out of the Marine Corps? What advice do you have for those individuals?
I think that if people can get past their preconceived notions of sometimes appearances, and what I've specifically meant by that, Marines have tattoos. Obviously, Marines going to interviews and whatnot, depending on what industry you're going to work in professionally, they may not appear and stuff. But like, don't hold that against somebody. There's a lot of valuable knowledge, hardworking individuals out there. That one, like I said, the hard work, the integrity, the loyalty that you'll develop. I mean, we are used to working and fighting as a team together. We got each other's backs. That's the biggest thing. I see it here, and it's hard for me working in the industry now. Just like people jump ship all the time. Whereas we had a regular rotation with EAS and PCS and whatnot, and we had a constant, cycle. But it's for different reasons. Whereas here, it's just like people go after the money. I think truly that Marines and Marine tankers, they like the family atmosphere. They like, working together, that tribal mentality. Like I'm gonna go to war with you. And bottom line is I'm gonna have your back. We're gonna get through this, through thick or thin. So that's my advice to them, is just like, you need to look. I think hiring veterans is a good thing, honestly. I think that if they pass the sniff test, then they're professionals, and the HR directors here, they know their job. I'm not going to tell them how to do their job, but these guys will get it done for you for sure.
No, it's great. Thank you. What you have anything in closing?
Yeah, I know I kept it long with some of these stories. I do just want to kind of highlight a couple of other folks, just influential throughout the career. One being my Alpha Company commander, Lieutenant Colonel, I think Lieutenant Colonel now, Nate Goulash. Huge impact on me, really invaluable. As I transitioned from that Delta company and then coming back to be a platoon commander under him, I think I had the foundation built from good staff NCO mentorship my first time around, and then having really good officership, which developed me and just pushed me really hard. And I don't think that we would have been as successful. And I'm going to toot my own horn here, that when you were my coyote, I believe you said no one had made it as far as we did on that final exercise. We had made it the farthest. And I attribute that, though, back to the Marines in that platoon, the guidance from my CO, who made me freaking work my ass off for everything, had us doing freaking terrain models and up at 2 a.m. and educating engineers and things like that. And then, like, again, my TCs, my Marines were, we worked together really great. And it was awesome. It was really good it felt good to go from, like, what I was in Delta Company, what I'm saying, to like, we were the main effort in Alpha Company. Okay. And that was, I held my head really high on that. And I think that led the CO at the time to maybe let me be Bravo Company commander for a little bit. And then obviously run Phasmo for, as the MMO. But now it was great. I appreciate everybody that I worked with being in First Tanks. I wanted to come back, to be honest, but the writing was on the wall for me. I wasn't going to deploy. I wasn't going to get a company to go operate in combat. That was my dream. Didn't get to do it. I have no regrets, though. And, I still got 1802 tatted across my chest, so I represent everywhere I go.
I got 1812, no big deal. So hey, in closing, I will touch on you for a moment. So I think your success in Alpha Company and what you built as a platoon, together with the folks who were there, obviously it's a team effort. But the fact that you stayed true to yourself, and the fact that you stayed, your sense of humor was invaluable, because on those late nights when it's cold, it's hot, whatever the weather might be that's doing, it's raining, and the Marines need some levity. The Marines need something to dig into. You were that guy. You were the guy that kind of came out there and just, threw something out there, make everybody laugh, make everybody forget how miserable they are for a moment, get back that energy, get back that motivation. And then that also transferred over to your technical and tactical skills, because the progression that you made throughout your military career is really one to be very proud of. And that's why, for me, having you on here is an absolute honor. And I appreciate you doing this, because to see somebody that, I knew you from day one, essentially. When you hit the fleet, I kind of knew you from day one. And then to follow you all the way through and kind of, have you again, when I'm in a role where I am supposed to be criticizing you and supposed to be, really kind of coming down hard on you, because that's what the Coyotes, the controllers of the exercise, do to make you better. And it was very, very difficult for me from that seat to critique your platoon, because you guys were wired tight. And that was because all the lessons that you had been given up to that point you stored, you understood them, you know how to execute them, you know how to kind of lay it out for the Marines so that they got it. If they needed a spoonful, you give them a spoonful. If they needed a fire hose, you turn the fire hose on. And you were able to do that because you built that knowledge within yourself. So I will give you credit now. I may not have given you credit then, but I'll give you credit now.
That.
So yeah, man, it's absolutely an honor. And what you've done in civilian world, I mean, you're killing it, brother. So it's really special. You made some time out of your schedule to come on here and do this for the channel, and I say thank you.
Yeah, no, and in closing for me, I appreciate you doing this. This is awesome. I hope that I was talking to Higgins the other day, trying to get Higgins on here. Really hoping that O'Day can make some time, something like that. These are some really good guys. A lot of insight in the community and whatnot. Shout out to Grazier. I know my Gray doesn't compete with his, but I built it themselves. So, no, hey, I appreciate it, Jared. Thanks so much. Thank you guys for doing this. I hope everybody enjoys it. I hope everybody's doing well. Hey, and you can, if anybody, you guys can hit me up offline or whatever, or email me, whatever it is. And happy to get in touch with anybody if I can do anything for you.
That's awesome. Thank you. And for those watching this, please don't forget to subscribe. Subscribers are really what is going to make this channel successful. Right currently today, we're at 53. It's a little bit challenging from my seat trying to manage this because YouTube doesn't really recognize you until you have 100 subscribers. So if you can help get the word out, help get folks on here to subscribe. Once we get over that 100 mark, magical things happen on the YouTube world. We get to name the channel officially, and then I'm able to publish it and kind of market it and get it out there even more so. So if you're listening to this and you want to be on this channel, please contact me. You can contact me in any way. Some folks do it through the military. Some folks do it on the civilian side, Facebook, whatever. I don't care. I am more than willing to take the time to talk to anybody and everybody because this is what it's all about. Every tanker has a story. Every mechanic has a story. Everybody's associated with these units and with this community has a story. And once again, man, thank you for telling yours. It's been an honor. And with that, I'll be closing out.
Semper Fidelis.
Hoorah, brother.
Wow.